Hey guys, so I wanted to talk a little bit today about feelings, emotions, things of that nature, and I'm actually hoping to do a series of talks on this subject because I think it's an important one, and I think it's a sticking point for many people. We as human beings are very much motivated by what we feel emotionally and how we feel. And very often this influences us more than anything else. And paradoxically, I think how we feel is maybe both the most important thing, and why we pursue spirituality ultimately. And then it's also something that we have to learn to transcend on a certain level. And so this can get very confusing for people. So this is why I wanted to talk a little bit about it. And this is not an easy thing to convey. So again, a series of talks, and I'm going to try my best to try and convey this. So on one level, in terms of spirituality and enlightenment, it's really not very important how we feel. Um, we can feel good some days, we feel bad other days. And very often, the way our mind works is our mind tells us why we're feeling good or bad. It sort of says, this happened, that's why you feel bad. So and so is sick, and so you feel bad. So and so won the election, that's why you're angry. There's racism in the world, this is why you're upset. What the great spiritual traditions that I study teach, whether it's A Course in Miracles or Buddhism or yoga, what they teach is that's not really the cause of our upset. You could almost say that the things that are happening in the world are like an excuse for us to get upset or angry. So the Buddha supposedly once said that you're not upset because of a certain event that happened. You get upset because you're upsettable. So we could apply this to basically every emotion. You think you're jealous because your boyfriend or girlfriend was talking to someone else. You're actually jealous because you have jealousy in you. There's no cause and effect there, right? Because same thing could happen to someone else, there's no jealousy. All right, same with anger. Maybe you've seen a situation where one person gets upset, angry about something, another person doesn't. This sometimes happens when I go out to eat with friends, right? So server messes up or makes a mistake or something. Like one friend is like, totally fine, don't worry about it, take your time, it happens to anybody. They're super nice to the server. Another friend is like, I can't believe this, I'm outraged. They did this, they did this, they did this. Okay, so again, if there were actually a cause and effect relationship, then everyone would be having the same reaction. But that isn't what we see. We see some people are getting upset, some people, it actually elicits maybe compassion from them. They might actually say, oh, you must be in the weeds, you're having a hard time. I used to work in the restaurant and looks like you're overrun, or whatever it is. So there's no consistency there. And so again, we can say, this happened, that's why I'm upset. No, it just doesn't hold water. It's just not actually true. So the things that happen in life are almost like an excuse. So I know many people who take yoga these days are fans of Eckhart Tolle. He's a very popular writer. So sometimes I try and relate this to his teaching because there's similar teachings in yoga. So his teaching is very nice, it's very accessible. So he talks about pain body. And he talks about the pain body is like an energetic form that lives within us, like a parasitic form. And what it does is it uses upset to energize itself. It's just basically like a little blob of anger or upset, jealousy, anger, rage, all what we would call negative emotions. It's like a little bundle of that. And when we are happy, satiated, when things are going well, it kind of drops down below conscious level. And then when an event like that happens, I get my cold soup. That's the example that he likes to use. Cold soup might not upset many people, but again, we can use another example. So-and-so wins the election, or there's another example of how unequal our culture is, and how women or minorities are not treated fairly, and we get outraged and upset. Now, I'm not saying there aren't problems that need to be addressed. Okay, so I want to be very clear about this, because there's a lot of this going around today. Many people think we must be outraged and upset in order to change things that are wrong. That's absolutely 100% not true. There's nothing worth losing our peace over. Our peace is our most precious thing. It is our nature. Same with love and compassion. If seeing you as a racist, if I'm a person of color and I see you as the racist, and I turn you into the other, into the enemy, and I lose my love, I lose my compassion, that is a tragedy. Sure, you might be ignorant and you might be trying to harm me, but again, one of my big teachings is no victims. You don't want to be anyone's victim, even if they are trying to turn you into their victim. Just don't let them do that. Don't ever see yourself as the victim of someone else's, whether it's cultural or whatever it is. And again, this is a spiritual concept. I'm not talking about practically. Yes, practically there are people out there who are victimizing people and victimizing you, and we've all been treated unfairly. It doesn't matter if we're a man or a woman, or we're black or white or brown or yellow. We've all had instances where we've been treated unfairly. Some people, perhaps more than others. But this concept it transcends that. This is a mental concept. This gives us strength and power when we say, you know what, you're trying to turn me into a victim, and I'm not going to let you do that. So I wanted to share from one of my favorite teachers, Muso Soseki, Muso Kokushi. So also, I share this teaching with many who come on retreat with me. Very short passage today, and this is from the book called Dream Conversations, and the title of this passage is Enlightenment and Feelings. And he says, if you forget your feelings about things of the world, they become enlightened teachings. If you get emotional about enlightened teaching, it becomes a worldly thing. Two very powerful sentences right there. The first one, if you forget your feelings about things of the world, they become enlightened teachings. Maybe you've heard me or other teachers say the teaching is all around you. Or when hardship comes your way, that is a lesson, that is a teaching. And you might be thinking, for instance, my father recently passed away due to COVID. You might think, well, how is that a teaching or a lesson? Well, he's telling you right here. If you forget your feelings about things of the world, oh my God, my father died, I can't go on, I'm so sad, I lost this. And he was one of my best friends in the world. We were very close. So I'm not saying that I wouldn't wish him to be here with us. But again, this is what this teaching is all about. How can we learn to live this life in a joyful way? And again, this is where emotions come back in, where we want to be peaceful, we want to be joyful always, regardless of circumstances, regardless of the people who come and go in our life. So my father has gone from my life, at least in physical form. Interestingly, I feel closer to him than I ever have in my life, even though he's now left his body. So again, maybe I'll talk about that someday, the reason why I think that is. He goes on to say, if you get emotional about enlightened teaching, it becomes a worldly thing. Well, isn't this what we see happening in a lot of religions today, where people are getting very emotional about their beliefs? They are trying to legislate their beliefs. They are trying to fight wars over what they believe is right. Again, it's not to say that we can't stand up for what we believe, but we do that with compassion, love, understanding, patience. We don't turn someone who disagrees with us into the other, into the enemy. And, there's been a lot of talk about, people like Gandhi and Martin Luther King and Nelson Mandela, where people will publish articles about them and how they weren't as great as people thought they were. I think they're all very human. I think they all had their human flaws. And I think if we could meet Buddha, if we could meet Jesus, if we could meet Muhammad, we would find that they were very human too. And if we could dig into their life with a fine-tooth comb, we'd probably find things that we didn't like, that we didn't agree with. And I think this is just how human beings are. This is just how we are. We don't all agree. And many of us might have qualities that others find, oh my goodness, I can't believe, she does this, he does that. This is, again, why I teach non-judgment. Very important. Because this idea of the perfect person who everyone would see as perfect doesn't exist. They don't exist. You might think that if you met a saint, that anyone else who met the saint would be enamored with them. Well, in some traditions, a saint can eat meat. In other traditions, they can't. There's no universal agreement on this. So, the perfect person, they don't exist. They're not out there. So, returning to our subject, emotions, very, very important. And what Muso Soseki is showing us is a path, a way forward. Now, I think with COVID and everything that's been going on, it can be a very emotional time. So this is a great time to practice. This teaching also shows up in the Bhagavad Gita in a slightly different form. In the Gita, Krishna teaches his disciple, his student, that you should perform action without attachment to the outcomes of the action. So what is he really saying? He's saying do your duty and don't get emotional about the outcome. So again, I'm a yoga teacher. Let's say I go to work. I work hard, my classes do well, and then a slot opens up, a good slot. Another teacher gets the slot, not me. Okay? So I get emotional. I'm getting attached. Wait a second. I'm working hard. I'm doing this. I deserve that. Well, now I'm getting attached to the fruits of my labor. I'm starting to say, because I did this, I deserve that. Okay? I'm starting to create suffering for myself. Again, all this is really about our own suffering. This is how we enter the kingdom of heaven. This is how we enter nirvana. This is how we end our suffering. So letting go of these attachments, this is the key. So again, I'll read it one more time. If you forget your feelings about things of the world, I like this, I don't like that, this has to be that way, that has to be that way. And again, I'm not saying we can't act in the world and try and steer the world in the direction that we think it should go. Again, the question is, do we have peace? Do we have joy? right? We can move in the world coming from a place of love, knowing that the world could be a better place, that we can help make it a better place. But we don't do that by turning ignorant people into evil people. That's a huge difference. Okay, so if I'm ignorant, and I don't mean ignorant in like, a derogatory way. Again, that's avidya. Most of us from a yogic perspective are ignorant. Most of us are suffering from avidya, from the yogic perspective. Until we're awake or until we're really enlightened, then we are confused about certain things in the world. And this is the other part about softening our feelings. You might say, well, I can't help but get upset because this is wrong and this shouldn't be like this and that. What we learn when we study Buddhism on a deep level, and again, I think this shows up in every tradition in one form or another, is that we don't really have the information to judge. If you've seen all the TED Talks that I've posted recently, they're all about how we have cognitive bias and we can't really, judge so easily. We don't know when we're suffering from cognitive bias. And so this is a very important point. I might be getting upset about things that really I don't need to get upset about. And then there might be instances where perhaps something is a problem. Again, perhaps there's a problem. I'm not saying that I don't think sexism, racism are problems, and I'm not saying I don't think they exist. Absolutely they exist. And absolutely I think the world would be a better place without them. The question is, how do we get there? So, again, there's been lots of anger, lots of upset, all this kind of stuff. People are, fighting and angry and all that stuff. I mean, if you look at, say, religious wars, so if you look at like what's happening in the Middle East, these are groups that have been upset with one another now for thousands of years. Thousands of years. They've been able to hold a grudge, and be able to stay basically in conflict for thousands of years. This is what we human beings can do. If we create the other, then we can go on fighting forever. The way that we stop the fight, the way that we really create unity, is by dissolving that. And so again, when I really have love and peace and compassion in my heart, if I've really cultivated this on the deepest level, then really there is no separation between you and me. Now that's a little bit of a deeper subject that I'm talking about today. This is when we get to that point where we're starting to dissolve our independent sense of self. That's where we're really getting to the heart of what yoga is about. But what I'm talking about today, softening our feelings or letting go of our feelings, this is part of the way that we get there. This is, you could say, part of the path. So we start to recognize, I may not know when it's appropriate to be upset, or I might be upset about something that really isn't the way that I'm perceiving it to be. And we've discussed this before, that we don't have all the information. We don't know what we don't know. And we might be getting very upset about something that really we don't need to get upset about. Now again, this doesn't mean we can't act in the world. Doesn't mean we can't try and take steps to right what we see as wrong. But from a spiritual perspective, there's nothing more valuable than our peace. Peace in our heart, compassion, and love in our heart. So again, I'll do more talks on this. There's a lot I can say about it. As you can see, I meant for this to be a short talk. Ended up being 20 minutes. So thank you for listening, if you're still listening. As always, please comment and subscribe if you're on YouTube. And if you want to help support me as a teacher, these are tough times for everybody, but especially for teachers like myself. Yoga classes are not what they once were. Many people are not coming. So I really rely on the support of people like you to help keep me going and help me keep making videos like this. So let me know if there are any questions about what we talked about. And I understand that maybe not everything I said today is, immediately obvious. But hopefully it'll become more and more clear as we talk about it and discuss it more. All right. Thank you, everyone. Namaste.